Hi and welcome to Careers and Coffee. So today we are in conjunction with East Suffolk Business Festival, and they are running lots of different workshops around business and how to get into business, including apprenticeships. So we have an apprenticeship special because this week is also apprenticeship week. So I'm going to welcome on our 4 guests. You're going to have to excuse me because I need to look at my notes because it's the first time I've met these guys. So we have Chloe, who is an electoral services apprentice. So she's going to tell us all about that because I'm not really sure what that is. Jack, who is an apprenticeship mentor for Apprenticeship New Anglia. So there's a lot of apprentices in his heading. Ellie, who is a housing policy and practice apprentice. And Josh, who is IT support analyst apprentice. So let's welcome them all on. Hello, all of you. You're all on mute, so she's just unmuting you all in the background. Thank you, Kayleigh.
Hiya.
Hi, guys. So this is going to be nice and chilled. So we're not going to pressurize you into answering 50 million questions. So let's get kicked off. We're just going to go through with what all of you do. So what your jobs are, and just a little bit about what your job is, because for lots of us, that's not going to make sense. So if we go round, Chloe, you go first.
So I'm the electoral services apprentice. So in simple terms, I help organise elections, putting people on the electoral roll, postal votes, that kind of thing. So that's the simple term of it. So yeah, that's pretty much what my day-to-day job is.
Okay, fab. Okay, and Josh?
Yes, I'm IT support. So my job is mainly helping people with their computers, whether they've got their password or if they've got an issue with their computers, things like that. But that then goes all the way up to managing servers and data and stuff like that on top. That's basically what I do.
Basically, brilliant. All right, and Jack?
Yeah, so I'm an apprenticeship mentor at Apprenticeships New Anglia. So I support young people aged 16 to 24 who are interested in apprenticeships and help them with sort of like CV writing, interview prep, and get them for sort of like, ready for apprenticeships in general. So yeah, that's mainly what I do. And recently completed a level 3 recruitment consultant qualification within my role as well. So
okay, like double whammy there. And Ellie?
Yeah, so I'm working for Flagship in the housing department at the moment, and I'm rotating between different housing teams. There's a lot of different roles within housing. There's rents, there's tenancy support, there's lettings. There's just so much to a housing association, and I'm starting off sort of in the thick of it in housing.
Okay. Can I just ask what level apprenticeship are you all doing? So start with Chloe and then go round again.
I'm level 3.
Level 3. Josh?
I'm level 3.
Jack?
Yeah, level 3. Yeah.
And Ellie?
And level 4.
Okay, all right. So we're all more or less the same level. And can I just ask your career route into your apprenticeship? So did you come straight from school? Did you do A levels first? How did you end up doing an apprenticeship? And we'll start with you, Chloe.
I did a previous apprenticeship before this in a completely different area. I did mine in sort of the equestrian world. Came to East Suffolk Council wanting to do another job. I have family and friends within East Suffolk Council, and they told me to go to the website and look for apprenticeships that way.
Okay, fab. All right. And Josh?
So I came from a different job doing like electrical engineering stuff, but my interests have always been sort of IT related. So I saw this apprenticeship come up and applied for it, and that's sort of how I got here, really.
Okay. Jack?
Yeah, so I've done an apprenticeship previously as well, in something completely different. So sort of like a level 2 warehousing role.
Okay.
Yeah, was at the company for about 4 years, and was made redundant out of that because the company shut down, and then was looking for many different opportunities within sort of like a different sector. And got a call one day for an interview for this role, and haven't looked back since. So,
Real. Okay, and Ellie?
So I did my A levels. I never actually sat my exams. I graduated in 2020, and there wasn't many apprenticeships about, so I took a level 2 apprenticeship in business administration in a care home for a year, and then after that I was sort of looking for a career development, and I found a level 4 apprenticeship in housing. So yeah.
Okay, so you've all kind of done something. It's not been straight from school, really. You've all had a little bit of something else beforehand. So I'll pick on two of you. I don't know who yet. But how does it differ from the apprenticeship you've done before? So the experience of maybe the apprenticeship and the experience of the provider. So I'm going to assume you've all possibly got different providers supporting you as well. So I'm going to pick on Chloe first. Sorry, Chloe. So how is it? How obviously your first one was with horses, but how much does it differ?
A lot. I was with a different provider. I was with Otley College, because that's the college I went from to then go on to do an apprenticeship. It was completely coursework based, where this one obviously has endpoint assessment at the end. Other than that, they don't differ too much in the sense of coursework and, reading through textbooks. Obviously, the topics are just completely different to what I'm doing now.
And how did you make that decision to change, Chloe?
I, again, like Jack, there was talks about redundancies. So, and I didn't really have what I thought the qualifications perhaps to come in at a higher level role. So I thought the apprenticeship level would be the best way to go about learning more about business admin, as I'd done everything equestrian horse based. So.
Okay, fab. And Jack, yourself, so you've obviously gone from a warehouse into a completely different role. So again, how does that differ and those kind of things?
Yeah, so in my level 2 warehousing role, it was a case of I was with City College. They were providing the training, and it was all within the workplace. So I'd have a tutor come to my workplace, set me sort of like tasks to do, and it would sort of like come to the workplace monthly. And so I was able to do that within the workplace, so it wasn't a case of going to college. And the sort of like apprenticeship that I've just completed recently in recruitment, that was with Paul Tech Training, and just a case of that sort of like helped, that was all at the sort of like college as well, but because of sort of like COVID, a lot of it was done remotely as well, sort of like virtually, so that played a factor, but they were still able to support us through that as well. So yeah.
Okay. So we've had a question in. So would you think about doing a higher level apprenticeship after you've completed this one? And do you feel an apprenticeship offers the freedom to do this because you're earning whilst learning? So let's actually go with the first part to start off with. Have any of you thought about doing a higher level apprenticeship, so that kind of degree level next?
Yeah, I've looked at it. Whether it's going to happen, I'm not sure. It depends how I get on with this one. But the company I'm with now do like a level 4 and 5 of either what I'm doing now, so sort of continuing so I'm doing what's called an infrastructure technician qualification, but they do a high level version of that, but they also do like specialist branches, so cybersecurity and all the other ones. So I have already looked at doing some of them, and I think that would be beneficial long term for my career to specialize in something. But I'm sort of waiting to see how I get on with this one and sort of what the environment and all that's like when I come to it.
I didn't realise you could specialise that much. I thought it'd be much broader, so that's really interesting in itself. What about, the fact that you're going to be earning? Is that something that appeals to you, carrying on with the further education rather than maybe going down a degree level and going to uni?
Yeah, I think so. I think it helps earning while working, because you've also get the experience to go alongside what you're working at the same time, or you're learning at the same time, sorry. So in the apprenticeship I'm doing now, where I've learned about something, I'm finding myself actually doing it in my job, so it sort of makes it a bit easier to sink in, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree. I I'm somebody who's quite a practical learner. I like to learn with my hands, so I can completely appreciate doing an apprenticeship. Makes much more sense. Have any of the others of you thought about doing maybe a degree level apprenticeship afterwards?
Yeah, I am actually going to be doing a level 6 apprenticeship in business management after my housing policy and practice apprenticeship. It's a 4-year program that I'm a part of. And I would say that most apprenticeships offer to put you through the next level. So even if you go in at a low level apprenticeship, which I found with my last apprenticeship, they did offer to put me through my level 3 in business admin, but I decided to have a bit of a change of direction.
Yeah. Okay, fab. All right. And if you do that, I'm just like, if you go on to the level 6 or whatever it is, are you tied in after you've completed, or is it just tied in with that company whilst you're going through your apprenticeship?
What do you mean, like, will I be offered a job
Yeah,
afterwards?
do they say, oh, we'll put you through your apprenticeship, but you've got to stay with us for 2 years afterwards, or is it just, stay with us while you're doing your apprenticeship, and then afterwards you can do whatever you want?
I'm not too sure. I'm not sure if I've had clarification on that, but I'm enjoying it so much that's not really crossed my mind whether to ask.
No.
But
that's a good thing. That's
yeah.
a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Right, we've got another question which says, which skills did you learn in your previous roles with horses? Oh, this must be for you then up there. That you've been able to carry over to your current role. I'm pretty sure none of the rest of you worked with horses, as far as I'm aware. So back to you, Chloe.
Yes and no. Obviously, the practical side of horses, there's nothing to do with horses at a council. I was a riding instructor, so the being able to present and talk to a lot of new people all the time, I have been able to bring that over. I did a little bit of time occasionally in the office, so I mean, it helped for me to, understand sort of the basic knowledge of answering the phone and that kind of thing. But other than that, I think horses is just it's a very different world. The management side of it, yes, you have to learn to manage other people and children if you're working as a riding instructor. So it is a handy sort of skill in that sense, but the practical side, no.
What about when you guys were in school? That probably feels like quite a long time. Well, not as long as when I was back in school, but for some of you, that probably feels like quite a long time ago. Did you learn much about apprenticeships when you were, pre-GCSE, for example? Let's start with you, Jack, on this one.
Yeah, unfortunately, not really. Yeah, just a case of it wasn't sort of like targeted in my school to sort of like everyone, to all the students. So I wasn't really made aware of it myself. Unfortunately, I didn't really know, sort of like at 16 whether an apprenticeship was an option for me. But obviously, further down the line, I sort of like realised it was. Persevering that further down.
So where do you think you first heard about apprenticeships, Jack, and thought, oh, actually, that could be for me?
So I first heard about it sort of like maybe a year later after I finished sort of like college. Sort of like realised that was an option of gaining a bit of work experience while sort of like gaining a qualification out of it as well. So that's when I sort of like learned a bit more about it, and that, yes, it was for me also. So that's when I heard about it. Yeah.
How about you, Josh? Had you heard about apprenticeships when you were in school?
Not so much in school, apart from I knew it was sort of suggested for the other children who were doing sort of the more practical courses, which I wasn't at the time. And it wasn't actually until sort of my first year of sixth form when I decided I don't want to go to university. That doesn't interest me. What are my other options? And then I sort of found out about the apprenticeship route, and then sort of looked more into that instead, which appealed to me a lot more.
Okay, we've had another question, and we'll come on to that in a minute, because actually you're all doing really varied different apprenticeships. So when you were in school, had you got any idea that you could do apprenticeships in the jobs you're doing now? So in that kind of role that you're doing now, had you got any idea that there was an apprenticeship for that? Yes,
No.
no, nods.
No.
No,
So-
not
No,
really.
no.
Okay. What did you think you could do apprenticeships in? Because I'm pretty sure you've all got those kind of preconceptions of what apprenticeships are. So let's go around. What types of jobs did you think you could have apprenticeships in? If we go, I'm going to go to Ellie first.
Well, obviously, the stereotype is apprenticeships are just sort of building work, mostly sort of, them sort of jobs. But I did have a look on the government website, and it sort of categorises different apprenticeships,
Yeah.
which was useful to have a look at just to see what was out there. But yeah, my initial knowledge when I was in school, before I started to really look into it, was just, it's just sort of building work.
Was that everybody else's kind of preconceptions too?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about when
Yes.
you go out into the world and you say you're an apprentice? What do they think you're doing? Let's ask you, Jack.
Sorry, what was the question? Sorry.
So if when you go out into the world and you say, "Oh yeah, I'm an apprentice," what do people think you're an apprentice in? You don't tell them what your job is, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so sorry, because I think you just cut out a little bit there. I didn't quite catch.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just
Sorry,
wondering
yeah.
if people, when you're out in the world and you say, "Oh yeah, an apprentice," do they have an idea of what your job is?
No, not really. So yes, it's quite sort of like difficult to get sort of like a perception of what my role is, and unless you sort of like explain it in detail. So yeah.
Okay, right. So we've had a question which is sustainability is important, and we see more people wanting to become environmentally friendly. What do you or your company do around sustainability? So I'm going to go to Ellie to start this off.
Okay. Well, because we're a housing association, we have a big part in becoming sort of more eco-friendly, because we're building new houses, and we own a lot of houses, and they are a big emission of greenhouse gases. So I know what Flagship has been doing recently is conducting EPC reports on all of our homes, which is like a certificate to say how energy efficient your home is. And we've been sort of focusing on making our homes more energy efficient. One of the projects one of my colleagues has been working on is replacing all homes that have a oil or storage heater with what they called again, air source heat pumps,
Yeah.
which are slightly more expensive than gas boilers, which is why we've started with oil and everything. But yeah, they're just a better alternative for people. But with sustainability, we also do need to keep in mind that we are a housing association, and we need to keep our costs low for our tenants. So yeah, we have a whole sustainability team. It's very interesting. That's the great thing about my role. I get to learn about all that, and eventually I will get to experience some time within that team.
Will you get to then
Yeah.
specialise, Ellie? So if you say, "Oh, I suddenly, I really want to, I don't know, work in the sustainability team," would you be able to then do that as an option moving forward?
Potentially, yeah. I think that would be more focused on in the level 6 management part of my apprenticeship. So that's the next apprenticeship I'm doing.
Yeah.
Within Flagship. But I do know previous apprentices who have gone on to sort of do projects in the sustainability team, and because they get to know their colleagues, they can see that they're passionate about it. They then make a job for them if they're going to be an asset to their team.
Fab. Okay. And I'm going to move on to another question, because I think that's well answered. I want to know, because some of you are working in quite small businesses, so how did you find out about your business? And I'm just going to ask Josh that, because I think you're in the smallest business out of everybody here, actually. How did you find out about the business? Because you're in Raiden, aren't you? Which is, for anybody who doesn't know Suffolk, it's tiny. Raiden is not a large place.
No, there's probably about 11 people that live in Raiden. It's just outside of Southwold, so it's sort of like Southwold's younger brother, maybe.
Yeah.
But I found the job on I found the job on Indeed, but I actually found about the company from just word of mouth. I've got a couple of friends that work here already, and I sort of mentioned to them that I was looking for something new, and they sort of said, "Oh, why don't you have a look at our place and see what you think?" And that's sort of how I found out about it, really.
What's it like working? Because it's a small business, isn't it? There's not many people there, really.
There's 180 people
In the one building, or?
in one building. Yeah, so it's a factory / offices. So there's probably about 70-ish office staff, and then the rest of them are all factory staff. So it's I'd say it's a fairly large business. We are classified as a large business.
It's a medium business, but yes.
Yeah, but as you said, we are in the middle of nowhere, so we are a bit sort of tucked away and hidden away a little bit. So it was word of mouth that sort of, because I didn't even know this place was here up until my friends sort of told me about it.
Yeah. And with you, Jack, obviously your role is quite niche because you're an apprentice mentor, being an apprentice, doing that role. So how did you find out about your role and go, actually, I wouldn't mind doing that?
Yeah, it was actually, I applied for sort of like a different role within my company actually.
Okay.
The role was no longer available. So they showed me to sort of like this role, and it sounded quite interesting, about sort of like, helping young people, who were interested in apprenticeships and just helping them on the path to work really. So that was, just getting, the idea of how that would all work and everything just excited me. And obviously with my role, I sort of like travel to sort of like schools and colleges, mentoring people in sort of like person as well. And obviously during COVID, it was all done remotely also. So supporting them sort of like as well, virtually also is beneficial during the sort of like pandemic and everything. So
we've had a question here. Do you think being an apprentice gives you a wider knowledge of your sector than if you were just an ordinary young employee? And I'll expand on that. Do you think it gives you a wider knowledge than if you were just a student as well? So, and give that over to Chloe.
I mean, I suppose it does. You have to think about things in slightly more detail. I mean, obviously, me being in the local government, so it's the public sector. So we have to think about, when I answer things for my coursework, how does it relate to my entire sector? How does it relate to East Suffolk Council? That kind of thing. So you're thinking about more than just your role, and perhaps also the roles within your team. So I feel like maybe you do get a little bit more knowledge, especially more than if perhaps you were a student coming straight from your GCSEs to A levels. You get that hands-on knowledge as well.
Okay, right. We're gonna do two final really quick fire questions because we are actually over time. So the first one is, if you've got a young person in front of you and they were wondering about whether they should do an apprenticeship, in about 2 or 3 words, well, I'll give you a whole sentence, but no more than a sentence. What would you say to them? And we'll just go around all of you. So Chloe, to start off with.
Yes, go for it.
Okay, Josh?
I would 100% give it a go.
Yeah. Jack?
Yeah, 100% give it a try, definitely.
And Ellie?
I'd say do your research because there's a lot out there.
Yep. Okay, and again, going back round, what is the best thing about your job? So, Chloe?
I would say just the support. Everybody here supports you.
It's a nice answer. Josh?
I would probably also go along that line and say the team I work with is probably what makes my job quite enjoyable.
Yep. Jack?
Yeah, I'd say sort of like helping young people and get them on the path ready for work is really something to be proud of. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Ellie?
I'd say the variety of different tasks and projects you can get involved with.
Yep, brilliant. All right, well, thank you very much all for coming on. I've learnt loads. I actually have loads of questions about each of your jobs because I'm a bit nosy like that, and actually I'd rather like ask you all about what you're doing and what does the electoral service really do, etc., etc. But I don't have a chance to do that because we've got 4 of you on and it's about apprenticeships. So if any of you would like to come back on, I would love to talk to you all more in depth because I think you've all got really, really interesting different roles. And I will thank you all for coming. I'm hoping that the audience had as much fun as I did. And I wish you all the best with all of your apprentices.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There were their voices in the background. They're all saying thank you. So that was our apprenticeship special. Just to remind you, that was with in conjunction with East Suffolk's Business Festival, which is still ongoing. They've got various workshops, so if you want to go and check them out, please do. If you want more information about apprentices, please take a look at either Apprenticeship Norfolk or Apprenticeship Suffolk, depending on where you're based, obviously. We have one more show for this half term, which is with Priscilla, who is going to be talking about all things inclusivity. So why it's important to have inclusivity in both your education and in your work settings, and why it's important to include people who maybe have additional needs into your work settings and how they will enhance that. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for Kayleigh in the background, and we will see you next week.